Drum roll.
All right, check. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Awesome.
Test. All right.
So the Runaway guys set a pretty high bar for the attendance in this room. So thanks for that. Anyway, sorry my voice is a little shot. I partied a little too hard last night.
Lots of screaming.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm Sam from Retroware TV, flanked on my left by Cyrus.
Hi.
And on my right by Jeremy, both of Retroware TV. And we're all here because...
Yeah! What a pop! Yeah!
All three of us, like I said, all three of us are big fans of pro wrestling, and we just wanted to talk about how wrestling and gaming kind of intertwine as fan bases. So,
We're also all three pasty white guys with dirty blonde hair and glasses, so...
So we were separated at birth.
this is my twin brother Cyrus.
And this is our older brother Jeremy.
Hello.
We're not related.
All right, you can next slide.
Sure.
All right. You can find me on social media at Real Sam Norton and the site at Retroware TV, and that's also my Instagram. Follow me for cat pictures. All right. And also I want to show the Retroware TV panel tomorrow night, 7:30, and Panels 2, which is right down the hallway over there.
We're going to have a lot of cool, fun video game challenges and stuff. I don't know if we'll have prizes or not, but it'll be fun. And I think the Game Chasers will be there, so it'll be a blast.
Game music will be there.
Epic Game Music,
yeah.
It'll be fun.
All right. So, as the introduction says, pro wrestling and gaming are two things that obviously we're all very passionate about. And like Cyrus and Jeremy, we're all into gaming and wrestling. And once in a while, trying to read, we talk about how it's so interesting that so many wrestlers are gamers and vice versa. And today we're going to talk about that. All right, so first we're going to go off some of our favorite games. So my favorite game of all time is Earthbound, Final Fantasy VI, Majora's Mask, of course, WWF No Mercy, the OG, and then Chrono Trigger.
Diggity dog.
All of these games, sans No Mercy, have very complex stories and several different elements.
I mean, the No
characters.
Mercy single player has a pretty in-depth narrative. I don't know what you're talking about.
Vince stole my title, man. Anyway, next slide. So now we're going to talk about my favorite matches. My favorite match of all time is Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 12, an Iron Man match. Then The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25. And finally, Shawn Michaels versus Chris Jericho at No Mercy 2008. And then some more of my favorite matches, Shawn Michaels and Shawn Michaels.
I said it's red.
All right.
How do you feel about Shawn Michaels?
He's all right. So my favorite wrestlers are Chris Jericho is my favorite. Currently AJ Styles, obviously Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart. Triple H, The Undertaker, and of course Samoa Joe. And now we're going to talk about Cyrus's favorites.
Yeah, so these are some of my favorite games. So I think, a lot of what I like about wrestling is characters. So in some ways, I think the games that I enjoy tend to have really enthralling and interesting characters. Paper Mario, the earlier games, people tend to like because of the cool partners you get. Mega Man 2 has awesome music. Dragon Quest V is probably my favorite of the bunch just because it's got the best sort of character progression. Metal Gear Solid 3 is awesome. It's probably the best Metal Gear game. Yeah, and then and Link Between Worlds is really good too. Anyhow, so my favorite matches, I think the cool part is Bayley and Sasha. I've gone to the past 3 takeovers in Brooklyn. I've been watching NXT since Arrival, and for me, it was really cool to see that sort of build over time and see how big that got. And to sit on the floor in Brooklyn and see Bayley and Sasha tell this mad story and just really kill it was awesome. And same with Zay and Cesaro. I wasn't there, but those are two guys that just know how to they can tell a story without talking, which I think is really impressive, and that's the best thing that they can do. And then Taker and Edge is sort of the first big match I remember watching, and it's just got everything that makes WWE style wrestling good. So that's why that's my favorite. My favorites of all time are Undertaker, Cesaro. I like Ric Flair, Zayn. So I don't watch as much New Japan as I used to. I don't keep up with it a ton, but when I was watching, Ishii was one of my favorites just because I think New Japan. All right. The Haas division in New Japan is awesome. I just like watching those guys kick the poop out of each other. I don't know.
Swear. It's okay.
Can we swear? I don't know. All right. I just like seeing them kick the crack out of each other, and some of Shibata and and those guys will just raw headbutt each other, and you just hear whenever they hit head. Oh God, dude, that's
I don't think Shibata.
That's a bad reference for Shibata.
I don't think Shibata knows that wrestling's fake.
And then Sam and I were actually at Backlash in Richmond when Slater and Rhino won the titles. And so I was really into watching SmackDown, and we were both hardcore for Slater. And so that was a pretty magical moment for our friendship, because when Slater and Rhino won, we both jumped up and hugged without talking about it. So wrestling's magical, man.
AJ Styles won the WWE title that night, but more importantly,
actually, Heath Slater and Rhino won the tag team titles. So, and Heath Slater got signed, mind you. So
he's got kids, man.
He's got kids. Double wide, all right.
Baby.
Jeremy.
Yes. So my.
Oh, dude, that is a great picture. that's pretty wrestling, honestly. That's why we watch wrestling, right?
How did I not notice that?
That is a defining moment in my youth as a video game fan. So my favorite games are Super Mario 64 is probably my favorite game of all time. It's just fun in its purest form. Final Fantasy 9, probably my favorite Final Fantasy game. Metal Gear Solid 2, mostly because Metal Gear Solid 3 was already on Cyrus's list, and also I think Metal Gear Solid 2 gets way too much hate. I think it's a masterpiece, same as almost every other game in that series. Sonic the Hedgehog 2, probably the best Sonic game ever, in my opinion.
I agree.
And I switch around the last slot a whole lot, but I just played Resident Evil 4 for Halloween last year, and it's still freaking great, and everybody should play it if you haven't already played it. So, my personal favorite matches, I had to really think really hard about this, because as a wrestling fan, I don't really think too hard about what my favorite match of all time is. I just kind of enjoy matches as they happen, But if I had to pick the match that really defined what wrestling is for me, personally, it probably would be Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3. WrestleMania 3 is probably the WrestleMania that defined what that event should be. And everybody always says that Macho Man versus Steamboat. Yeah, Ricky Steamboat is the best match. And yes, technically that is the best match of that show. But for me, as a kid growing up, I don't know, just something magical about seeing Hulk Hogan going up against the giant that was Andre.
It's sort of two sides of the same coin, in that a good wrestling show should have those matches that are entertaining, but they should also have those matches that are technically impressive. It's good to sort of hit both sides of the spectrum.
Yes. On the more to get a bit more smarky, Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Eddie Guerrero on Halloween Havoc is a phenomenal bout of aerial wrestling and lucha libre skill from two of the best ever. If you haven't seen that, definitely check it out. And then finally, to something more current, Naito Tetsuya, or Tetsuya Naito for non-weebs. Versus Kenny Omega, the G1 Climax last year. Everyone's going to debate what the best match was, between for Kenny Omega and New Japan last year. But for me, this was my personal favorite, just because I like those guys so much. My favorite wrestlers, of course, like I just mentioned, if you'll indulge me, was Naito Tetsuya and Rey Mysterio, I just mentioned, Eddie Guerrero, Matt Hardy. Delete! Daniel Bryan, Shinsuke Nakamura before WWE completely ruined him, but
Way better New Japan.
and probably the best high flyer that I like right now is Ricochet. So
And bonus points for him for not having anyone on the redacted list. Right. So we're going to start off by talking about how these two phenomena started. Pro wrestling, as Jeremy mentioned with WrestleMania 3, really got into the mainstream in the 1980s with, as he said, Hulk Hogan versus Andre, and that's when all of the real cartoony-ish characters really took off. And at the same time, in 1985, which coincidentally was the year of the first WrestleMania, the NES came out in America with Super Mario Brothers. And so watching wrestling is a huge escape from reality for a lot of fans. Just like when I was a kid, I'd get home from school every day and play video games just to de-stress. Like every Monday and Tuesday night after classes or work, I'll just put on an episode of Raw or SmackDown and kind of just invest in those characters. Have anything you want to say?
Did you guys see that tweet that Cody put about that photo the other day? It was saying that it's they were like, yeah, this photo's just for us, and then Ryder tweeted it like a minute later. It's totally Ryder thing to do. But honestly, that photo is awesome just because it's sort of like a really cool moment in time. See, when you get all those characters for Super Smash Brothers Melee, it's kind of a weird series on GameCube. There's a Godzilla game, and then a Ninja Turtles game, and then a Smash Brothers game. They're all called Melee. I don't get the series affiliation, but
You have to be specific when you say Melee.
Yeah.
So, pro wrestling obviously is a scripted performance. If you didn't know it was fake already, I'm sorry.
What?
it's real to me, damn it.
Sorry, guys. So many fans view it as just a regular TV show, like someone would view something like Steven Universe or Gravity Falls, and so wrestlers are essentially characters in the TV show, and each character has their own unique traits and could be a good guy, a bad guy, an anti-hero, but they all have, it's like a fandom pretty much, like any TV show or game.
Yeah, and wrestling fans are definitely sort of like a defined group of people. My favorite thing so I run the 2K tournaments we do here every year, and my favorite thing about that is just seeing how nuts the crowd will go, just because you guys are crazy. So that's always a lot of fun just to see,
I did a little thinking about this, and I think as far as the bridge goes between wrestling fans and gaming fans, I think it's just timing. Because when wrestling first exploded was early mid 80s, and that's really when video games really started to explode. So now you're seeing people of my generation and younger really exploring both of these mediums, and of course there's going to be crossovers. So I think it's great.
It's a little cliche, but Edge will always talk about wrestling being real life superheroes, that sort of thing. So we like games because we like the characters and what happens, whatever. And wrestling's cool because it's that same way where you get to get invested in characters and things. But if you really want to, you can actually go meet these people. You could never actually go meet Mario. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. Lou Albano's dead now too, so you can't even meet him. But if you want to go meet your favorite wrestlers, unless they're gone, you can actually go find them, shake their hand, take a picture. And that's really cool about it.
So there are several different aspects of gaming and wrestling that go easily hand in hand, such as we have heroes and villains. So right here I have a picture of Hulk Hogan tearing his shirt off, which easily described how wrestling was in the 1980s. It was all big, beefed up men going to fight the bad guy. And then we got Mario, who is the everyman Italian plumber. And I've got Ganondorf, who is the big bad of Legend of Zelda, who's all evil. And so I was trying to find who was a true bad guy in the 1980s for wrestling, and the only guy I could really find who was hated was Ted. Well, he wasn't a wrestler; he was a manager. So I got the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, whose whole thing was, I have more money than you, I can do whatever I want because I have power.
What you gonna do when a Mario Mania runs out wild on you?
I mean, if you go kind of sort of a little bit more modern, I think sort of like as far as like traditional like real heels go, JBL comes to mind for me. Sort of same idea. I have money, screw you, that sort of thing.
We have anti-heroes. So I have a picture of Shadow from Final Fantasy VI, who is known to, throughout that game, he'll help you, but he's also like, don't get me involved in this. I'm just here for, what I need to gain. And Seth Rollins right now isn't a really good example of that, because he's kind of in no man's land right now in the tag team division. But
Jason Jordan, all right.
Anyway, for a long time, Seth was just rebelling against authority and going all in for himself and no one else. So I kind of relate him as an anti-hero in a sense.
I kind of want to see a Final Fantasy WWE crossover in there.
That would be amazing.
I think that would be horrible.
I mean, what we had a WWE like Twisted Metal game in Crush Hour. There was that what is it? Assault on Game Boy Colors, like the side-scrolling beat 'em up or whatever. Like, oh man, let's do a wrestling RPG. Why not?
All right, we have these comedy characters okay, so we loved Heath Slater and Rhino.
Because he made us laugh.
Yeah, his whole thing was he lived in a trailer and needed a job for his redneck kid wife and children, and the other guy just ate cheese and crackers the whole time. And then I have Ultros, who literally is one of the weakest bosses in Final Fantasy VI, and just shows up, hey, you thought you got rid of me? I'm back for the fight, and he dies in 3 attacks. And then we have heroes that are hated.
I agree. Thank you, sir.
So we have
Also, Roman Reigns is in fact a good wrestler. Come at me.
So I picked
The most polarizing figure in the WWE.
So I picked Roman Reigns as, no matter how hard he tries, he's always going to get booed, just because he's very, as we said, he's very good in the ring and he has traits, but just it's honestly,
it's not organic.
Yeah.
He's fine and he's a good wrestler and whatever, but it's very clear that he didn't get to where he is because he's good. He got to where he is because
Politics.
And we have I put Titus from Final Fantasy X in because he's not necessarily a bad character, but he's a super annoying one, and he's just so dumb. Ha 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 ha. What I've heard, the general consensus of Final Fantasy X is that it has a great story, just with really bad characters. But yeah. Then we have the villains that are loved. As I said, Chris Jericho is my favorite wrestler, and so they literally had to turn him into a good guy just because he was getting cheered. And because with the whole list of Jericho thing, he would add people to this list if they pissed him off, and it was supposed to be a bad thing, but people wanted, it's like, put me on the list. Yeah, you're about to put someone on the list. Then you have Fawful from Mario and Luigi, who's one of the most interesting Mario characters.
He's funny. Yeah.
He's in no mainstream games, but everyone loves him. People call him one of the greatest Mario villains of all time, even though he's only in one series.
See, who I would have chosen as a wrestler for this was probably be Kevin Owens, because no matter how much of a dick he is, people will still cheer him no matter what Vince McMahon does.
We were just talking about, Sam and I were just talking about this year in Brooklyn when Roode and McIntyre had their match for the NXT title. Nobody was cheering for Drew McIntyre because Bobby Roode is the most glorious man in the history of the universe. So he would come out and his entrance is this most so you can't. He's supposed to be the bad guy and it makes sense, but he's just so awesome that you don't want to boo him. So yeah, exactly.
Braun Strowman's a babyface now. All right, and then we have these characters that no matter who they are, you're gonna like them. So AJ Styles was another bad guy that everyone loved, but he also was. Who said that's not true? Oh, okay.
Soccer mom hair, yeah.
Shut up, Chris. Anyway,
Kevin Owens, right there.
So AJ Styles, he's just such a great wrestler, and he's so all around amazing. People are going to cheer him no matter what. He was universally just adored the second he came to WWE, and even when he turned heel, people still cheered him. They had to turn him back face real soon. Then I have Gino, who only appears in 2 Mario games, but he's
Superstar Saga.
he has a short cameo in Superstar Saga.
Although they took him out of the remake.
Oh, did they? Ooh. So Gino is such an interesting character because he sort of comes out of nowhere. The avatar that he's in is a children's toy, but he's really an alien from outer space. And he's just such a unique character that's powerful and has a unique backstory that everyone loves him.
Well, and with Smash Brothers Brawl and with Smash 4, there was a very big sort of fan demand to see Gino in there. It's like, why is everyone really excited about Gino? He's been in 1 game. Like, what's the hubbub? But clearly, he just sort of seems to stay relevant.
He's got that, like, it factor.
Yeah, it's something about the design and the way that his character plays. I mean, he's one of the best characters in Mario RPG as well, as far as the way he plays, so.
And then, like video games, pro wrestling's an ongoing story. It's really like Final Fantasy. You can tell I love Final Fantasy VI by all these pictures. Like Final Fantasy VI shows there's so much world building and world destroying. That game just goes from such a long. The game takes place over such a long period of time, and so much changes throughout. And same in wrestling, because wrestling never really stops.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think Final Fantasy is a good comparison too, because even though it's not always the same characters, there's the same tropes are usually there. Wrestling is the same way, where you have 2 guys. It might even be the same 2 people, but in different characters or whatever. Guys shake hands after a match. People the same. You get the same chance. This is awesome. Whatever. It's different people, but it's the same emotions and the same sort of things happening.
I think a really good modern comparison would be, and this is not coincidental, would be the Yakuza series, because because that game is basically a soap opera mixed with Japanese drama, mixed with professional wrestling a little bit, and it's just every game continues the story on from the last one, and now there's like almost 10 of them, and it just goes on and on and on. So yeah.
I'm just gonna put in a plug for Sleeping Dogs.
Oh yeah.
I know nobody played that, but
Very
that's
underrated.
awesome. Yeah, it's the same idea.
Okay. So, like I said, wrestling never really ends. So video games have their own series and their sequels and everything, but at some point, it's going to have to end. There are series that have the exceptions like Mario, but the stories in Mario games rarely ever connect to the other. And same with Final Fantasy. But you see, like in wrestling, since it's something that can't really stop, characters changing affiliation throughout. So I put a picture of Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose here. So there was a tag team, I guess you could say is a tag team in the WWE called The Shield.
The who? Never heard of them.
Yeah, it seems that's weird. Why would you be a shield? Why not be a sword?
The team that Roman Reigns brought from the ground up.
Right, that one. Okay.
Anyway, the guy on the left, Seth Rollins, broke up the Shield, and he's in this image, he's fighting another former Shield member because, obviously. So, I'm really tired, as you can tell. You can see in the next picture, about 3 years later, since characters change affiliation, Seth Rollins is a good guy again, and now he's teamed with the guy who he once hated, and now they became champions. Unfortunately, not anymore, but it's ongoing.
You kind of get that in games sometimes too. It doesn't happen all the time, but like in some of the Mario games, Mario and Bowser will work together or something like that, where it's like, okay, yeah, no, we need to work together against the greater good, and we sort of formed our relationship out of our constant battles. Sort of the way that Sheamus and Sorrow came together was they built respect for one another through fighting each other. Mario and Bowser have that similar relationship.
Any Final Fantasy V fans out there? Yeah. Gilgamesh. Hello. Gilgamesh was the character. Have you guys played Final Fantasy V?
I'm going to.
Gilgamesh. He's a popular character. He appears throughout the series, and when he first appears in Final Fantasy V, he's a lot like that. He's like his affiliation. At first, he seems like a really straight up evil dude working for the bad guys, but throughout the game, he flips back and forth until eventually he's your ally, and it's really cool.
Yeah. So I have so now I'm going to the real crossover part. So here's some references and influences gaming. So this is Rockhawk from Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. In the, I believe you would
Spanish.
notice, in the Spanish version, he's referred to as Hawk Hogan.
What you gonna do, brother?
And
When Hulk Hogan runs wild on you.
the whole chapter is influenced by pro wrestling, as Mario has to go to the Glitz pit and fight his way up to the top. But you don't just have to win the fights. You have someone booking the matches saying, all right, now you're going to have to do this in the fight, to get the crowd into it. Don't just go out there and beat him, take damage, It's very interesting, and that whole chapter's influence. And I have a very famous scene from Final Fantasy VI where you have Sabin, who a lot of his moves are kind of influenced just by not just wrestling, but fighting in general. But he suplexes things, and in the scene, he suplexes a train while it's moving.
Well, yeah, and in Japan, wrestling is looked at as another set of fighting. It's not, to them, it's still real to them,
Right.
damn it. So, you sort of see that influence. Like Kirby has the suplex ability in some of the games too. Like it's, so every fighter is similar. There's some stuff. I mean, that's more so fighting like Ryu and stuff like that. But I mean, there's the specific suplex ability, stuff like that. So it pops up every once in a while.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, sorry. So I was just gonna say, yeah, pretty much every action game these days has some kind of suplex or drop kick or headlock or something, some kind of wrestling influence maneuver in it.
Every Japanese ninja knows how to do an Azuna drop.
Exactly.
Right. So now in this slide I have a lot of, gaming has a huge precedence in wrestling. So the first is a sign at just a non-televised live event, just a guy saying, come on Nintendo, give us Melee HD, which has nothing to do with the show, but it's just funny.
That's from that's a Madison Square Garden show, and there's another picture of John Cena seeing the sign and being like, I don't, like, he's just so confused. He's like, why would you do that?
And then the next picture is it got pretty viral when it was shown. At WrestleMania 32, there was a sign in the first match. It's kind of hard to see, but it says, Nintendo, give us Waluigi amiibo, please.
And then it happened. It worked. So if you want an amiibo, you bring a sign to a wrestling show.
Preferably WrestleMania, the biggest one.
And then Reggie sees it and he goes, oh, okay, put it on the list. All right.
We should probably do that. Those smarks want it.
Note to self.
So
ask
John
for
Cena
Switch
amiibo coming
at
up.
Raw.
Yeah.
We got TJP. He has his own slide. I'm not really sure why I did, but his whole character is video game based, and it almost to the point of annoyance. He
cringy. Yeah.
He comes out. It's like max health. He's all pixelated. Then he dabs, and that's kind of annoying. But backstage, he would talk to just other wrestlers about video games and just dude, you don't have any extra lives? Come on. I'm like, God, please stop. Like, come on. But his whole character is influenced by video games.
And I think, and you mentioned too, I think in the Cruiserweight class, he talked about like he wanted to be somebody that younger people could relate to, millennials, whatever. And we mentioned that games came up around the same time of wrestling, so that's sort of part of the culture now. But then I also think it was kind of cool when he debuted on the main roster, the Mega Man Twitter tweeted out his video or whatever. It was like, because his entrance is very Mega Man-esque. So
Character those damn millennials can relate to.
His whole character is, I like video games.
So right here I have ring gear, which is inspired. So we're gonna get to the Xavier Woods of the New Day later, but you can see that he has D-pad, or the New Day have D-pads.
that's Kofi.
Oh, it's really tilted from here. I said the New Day just as a whole, and I was going to talk about Xavier of them. So I have one of John Cena's old shirt is literally just an NES game, but with
it's reminiscent of the pro wrestling box art for NES.
Yeah, and
There was actually a moment when Xavier Woods actually, like when he first started WWE, like coming out of NXT, he had tights that had X and V, like Xavier Woods, XW in the style of the Sega logo.
Nice.
oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
He also threw a Hadouken, and only Byron Saxton caught the reference.
Nice. Yeah. He mentioned too there was they did the big TLC match a while ago, and he was on commentary and he said like, oh, you see, he's at ringside, he's recharging his stamina, and Michael Cole goes, it's a video game, and he goes, it's realistic. So.
Also, Cody Rhodes, he, I don't know if you guys ever noticed, or probably aware of this, Triforce, yeah, right? Because apparently he plays Link to the Past once a year. Yeah.
Right. So I have move names and references. So I believe that's Xavier Woods' tattoo of
I
a
think that's
Trevor's.
it, yeah.
Yeah. He also, so I don't mention this later, but he plays a trombone on the way out to the ring, and that's just part of the whole New Day's shtick. Is they're just like all fun, and every once in a while he'll bust out during a match like a tune from a game. Like he'll play like the Final Fantasy victory theme. That's one that he plays.
Well,
pretty
and he
common.
calls it like Francesca 2 Turbo or whatever, which is obviously a reference to Street Fighter 2 Turbo. So
Yeah, because the trombone got broke, and my Francesca. So he got Francesca 2, which is Francesca's the name of the trombone, and then that broke. So he's like, guys, this is Francesca 2 Turbo. And this is Kenny Omega, who we'll talk about later. He's very influenced by video games his whole wrestling career, and his finishing move is called One-Winged Angel, named after the theme or the Final Fantasy VII main antagonist Sephiroth's theme.
I think one of the Mega Man composers did his theme song or something like that at some point. I remember reading that.
His theme is very reminiscent of
Yeah,
Final
and
Fantasy.
it's Final Fantasy-ish, yeah. So.
All right, so here's some wrestlers who are well-known gamers. So, like I said, Kenny Omega.
Great picture. That is an excellent picture.
I tried it while I think I was watching SmackDown while I made this, and I'm like,
You even look at it, you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, so I got Kenny Omega, who is the leader of the Bullet Club right now, and you've probably seen a lot of Bullet Club shirts at this event, and his is 8-bit. It says Kenny the Cleaner.
Game over on the back too.
Yeah. Well, before he was a bad guy, he would like often make a lot of gaming references. When he I didn't watch when he was a face.
It's not just its
Yeah.
It's not just its finisher. Well, he has multiple finishers, but they're all named after video games. He's famous for his knee strikes now. They're called the V trigger. So after Street Fighter V.
And he'd do the thing where like he like charge up his arm hairs that he would like recently shave or whatever, and he had pictures like on T-shirts of him like looking like Mega Man with a chainsaw on his arm, because that was the idea that he raked the newly shaved hair on your face.
Also, I'm pretty sure in the Indies, or in the Indies, he did some kind of pile driver styled after Zangief.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Dude, these are great pictures. I love their faces.
Yeah. So I have Cody Rhodes, who, as Jeremy mentioned,
It's Cody.
sorry,
Yeah, just Cody.
Stardust.
Stardust.
So Cody, as Jeremy said, is a huge Zelda fan. He plays through A Link to the Past like once a year. And even when I was just starting, he was called Stardust at the time because he was still in WWE. I remember I was watching with you, I think. One of our friends was like, yeah, I saw him tweet, yeah, I got Hyrule Warriors for Christmas. Awesome. And stuff like that. It was just really interesting. And he's just such a huge gamer. And
I think he was saying that he has like a Mortal Kombat 2 machine in his house or something like that, I think.
something like that.
Yeah. I mean, when you have that kind of money, why not?
Yeah. AJ Styles, who
Xbox. I would have won if it was on Xbox.
oh my God. So AJ Styles is a huge gamer. If you watch a channel that we're going to mention later down the line, Up Up Down Down, he's very frequently on that channel as the Prince of Phenomenal, which is they have names on the
nicknames,
channel.
yeah.
So he gets so angry when he loses at video games. They did a 6-episode series dedicated to him just breaking controllers. And whenever he loses, they do the Madden tournament every year. Whenever he loses, he just like screams, breaks controllers.
Yep.
And the funniest thing that Cyrus and I always joke about, because he's from North Carolina, he has a southern accent, he pronounces Xbox like Xbox.
Like pronounced X-BAWKS, like Xbox.
So whenever Cyrus and I'll be playing games and he beats me, I would have won if this one Xbox.
I think too, and the thing we always laugh about too is whenever anybody asks him what his favorite wrestling game is, they'll be at like a 2K press event, and obviously they're all supposed to be like, oh yeah, the new realistic WWE 2K video game is like my favorite. And
Not
every
AJ.
time, without fail, Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 for the Nintendo 64. It's like
Which is a game that was never released in America.
we look for it on the show floor here every year. We cannot find it.
No. It's like one of the most, it's honestly besides the graphics.
Yeah, I mean it's No Mercy, it's same engine, and
But
then
more
it's,
realistic.
Yeah, and then it's got like the whole like New Japan roster, and then like a lot of WCW guys, and like
AJ has said he has 4 copies of the game.
so. Yeah, tweet at him. Tell him to give us one. I want one.
I asked him on Twitter if he'd sell me one. He didn't reply.
Yeah, come on, dude.
All right, Xavier Woods, as we mentioned earlier, Austin Creed.
You mentioned his tights earlier, and you picked the one picture of him without him in video game tights.
Listen, man, Google Images isn't always reliable. Anyway, we'll talk about him later because
There was a moment where he was literally cosplaying as a Final Fantasy character.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I probably should have at WrestleMania they dressed up as Final Fantasy 14 characters.
Yeah, that was a paid thing, I think. But like,
Yeah.
that was like a video game ad at
But they did it so well.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So now Up, Up, Down, Down, which I wanted to talk about, is Xavier Woods, as we talked about the New Day, has this gaming channel on YouTube, and it's named after the famous Konami code. And I have a couple of videos from it on here.
You wanna watch all of them?
We don't have to watch all of them, but we can.
Just pull it up. Or?
Yeah. We'll watch like a minute. I think one of these isn't related to Up, Up, Down, Down, though. Yeah, this one's kind of long, so let's just watch like a couple minutes.
No, you don't. I have a partner.
This is just scenes from the show. Xbox.
It's gonna be okay. I mean, we're happy to see you, but it's a surprise. Are you okay though?
I'm okay. I'm ready to play.
All right, you playing? All right, you know what, Bailey? Fine, you're in.
Yes.
She decided to win. Game of
Decided to win.
Wheel of Fortune.
You wear the glove. Here, we don't have time
Nice.
for this.
Wheel of Fortune, Wheel of Fortune, Wheel of
Power
Fortune.
glove.
I won. You lost. Facing the cake. This is too tight. The
Keep
glove
it tight.
doesn't.
Keep it tight. We keep it tight. So you must have quit. All right. Do I have to do this myself?
Yep. I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah!
Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
Rest it deep.
Nice.
Get it all there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice,
Oh yeah.
nice.
Oh yeah.
Happy birthday to me.
Make sure you follow your boy on Twitter.
All right, so next one.
You wanna watch that one?
Yeah. I don't think these are Up, Up, Down, Down videos, but they're like show the
highlights, yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, then. Oh, it's short. Okay.
Yeah. I think this might be. Yeah. So at CEO, Xavier Woods actually faced off against Kenny Omega.
No way! Are you serious? There's no way. Is that Xavier Woods?
Xavier Woods is in the building! The stare down!
The smack talk.
Guys. We're not fighting in real life. This is fighting games. The ring is this way, Austin Creed. Get in the ring.
It's just being
Yeah.
And then the last one, which is it's not long. I think this was this is another fighting game tournament. They had
They're in a ring, yeah.
Yeah, they have it in a ring. So one of the guys decides to have a Stone Cold entrance.
got the pop. He got the pop. Got the pop. You got the point.
I recommend this song as a song for your alarm in the morning. It'll get you up.
Oh! Can I get it? Can I get it?
It gets better.
Give me that. Give me that. Give me that for me.
Yeah. And the coup de grace. Not the coup de grace.
Stone Cold Janet Bradley.
I don't exactly think alcohol is the best thing right before a fighting game tournament.
Yeah, right.
That was good. That was good.
Stunner.
Just
All right. Cool. So like I mentioned, Xavier Woods just in the show, it's filmed at the arenas when they do like Raw and SmackDown, right? Yeah. So Xavier Woods will just go and get people just backstage, hey, come film this.
Well, the idea too, when he always talks about with the show, is that he wants to sort of replicate that feeling you get of playing games with your friends. Sort of getting together with a bunch of your buddies and playing your favorite game or whatever. And that's very much sort of the theme of the show.
And it's funny because some of the most prevalent characters on the show are like some you don't never see on TV.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of them too, they end up showing more character on the show, and you get to like them more when you see them on TV. You know.
Yeah, I remember because Curtis Axel, like before he was part of the Miz's team, he was just goes out and loses.
But thankfully, he's good at Madden. So
I remember Cyrus and I were talking a while ago. He's like, that Curtis Axel gets to the arena, finds out he doesn't have to wrestle, and just goes in the back and plays football for 3 hours.
So that's the life pro tip: is that if you're not doing well in your job, just play video games. Then your boss will see that, and you'll get more money. So it'll be great.
Yeah. And finally, some fan crossovers. I'm sure all of you guys have seen these shirts around here, very prevalent. The Bullet Club is a villainous stable in New Japan Pro Wrestling and kind of in Ring of Honor, right?
Yeah, a little bit both.
Yeah.
Around the world, basically is worldwide, brother.
So as their leader, Kenny Omega is a huge gamer, and I think that's one of the reasons you see a lot of the shirts here, because most of them are Kenny's shirt.
Well, and they tap into that crossover in a lot of ways. It's sort of, New Japan is sort of, it's this niche, it's sort of like the connection the anime has with games. It's sort of this thing that, the mainstream doesn't know about. And that's why New Japan is appealing to a lot of people, because it's the cool thing, that a lot of people know about.
And Bullet Club shirts are pretty much like NWO shirts were in the 1990s. They were everywhere. You would see them not just on
club,
wrestling.
Yeah.
You were not cool unless you had a Bullet Club shirt at a wrestling event. So.
Actually, Jeremy's shirt for our site, Retroware, is replicating the old NWO logo. Yeah. And finally, some more memes. So, meme culture in games is huge, and like a lot of my friends who don't watch wrestling, I don't watch, but I know the memes. So, it was Randy Orton first, right? I think there are videos of just people like falling, and they just Photoshop Randy Orton RKOing them in. And then, of course, John Cena, who is...
His name is John Cena.
You would just see when any video where there's a name involved, they would just obnoxiously blare at John Cena's theme loudly over it.
I want to leave this slide up. I want somebody to walk in and see this be like the first slide when they walk in.
I actually prefer the moment where Brock Lesnar F5's a shark.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yes.
Oh, we got one. Okay. Hey, look at the slide.
Person walking
in the back. Hey, look at the slide. Is it funny? Okay, good. Thanks. I got what I wanted. I'm gonna go now.
All right, we have wrestling games. Cyrus held a 2K tournament just about 2 hours ago, and that's huge here. WWF No Mercy, unfortunately not being held here this year, but usually it's such a huge tournament at this con.
Well, yeah, and Botchamania is very much a show, like it's wrestling mess-ups with video game music. That's what, it's a very prevalent idea, like, it's that connection, sort of, substantiated.
A lot of crossover.
And wrestling games are pretty consistently not on the NES or SNES, but since then have been pretty consistently good.
Yeah.
So are generally some of the best, licensed games.
And they're a little hard to get into at first because the barrier of entry is a little high, but if you know wrestling, wrestling games do a great job of letting you replicate what you see. You get to do the cool dives, and you can put guys through tables and whatever. So it's very much, it's what a simulation game should be. It lets you do what you don't get to see on TV, sort of thing.
Yeah. And finally, just the conclusion. So it's pretty interesting just how gamers and wrestlers, everyone in here, you're here because you're a gamer, and you're in this room specifically because you're a wrestling fan. Or
you're just supportive friends. Thanks,
people in the front row besides Naveed.
Or you saw all three of us putzes. It was like, I'll give them a little time. I'll give them a shot.
But it's just even when I talk to someone, I'll ask him if wrestling comes up. I remember John last year. I was like, are you a wrestling fan? He's like, no, but it's so interesting to see how many people at these conventions are.
Yeah.
It's like a surprisingly large number.
Well, I'm really excited to see. Sorry, Jeremy, just one second. I'm really excited to see. We've gone to too many games the past years, and the cosplay pro wrestling show is really prevalent there. And I think we're doing one. I think it's tonight at 2 a.m. or whatever. But there's it's cool to see stuff like that. sort of emanate and become more prevalent at conventions, because it's a, when you go to the wrestling game tournaments, you go to stuff like this, like there is a specific crowd of people at these conventions that likes wrestling and wants to see these things. So the connection is very clear.
I have seen more people at this MAGFest cosplaying as wrestlers, wearing wrestling t-shirts, wearing wrestling championship belt replicas, than I've ever seen in the 5 years I've been coming here, and I don't think that's a coincidence.
I mean, where else are you gonna see a sexy Drew Gulak? Like, come on, that doesn't happen anywhere else.
I have cosplayed one time only, and it was of my favorite wrestler, Chris Jericho, here last year. I saw Breezango yesterday. It was Tyler Breeze.
Yeah, I saw those guys. Yeah, those are cool.
Oh, damn. I'm sorry, man.
Fashion violation.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else you guys want to say? Any questions, anybody? Like, you just whatever?
Or
yes.
comments, whatever.
So I was surprised you didn't mention it, especially when you were talking about like the Bullet Club and all the variations on their shirts. Do you guys know about the Tekken Bullet Club?
Yes.
Like you can get that shirt in the game Tekken set.
I didn't know about that. That's awesome.
I didn't know it was in the game, but I remember my friend telling me that they are because they are sold in Hot Topics. He said, go there right when they get them, because after a day, they're gone.
Yeah, all the Bullet Club shirts sell out immediately at Hot Topic, yeah.
Also on the subject of Tekken, you can, as King, you can also do Kazuchika Okada's Rainmaker clothesline finisher. So, King basically is just like, as a character, is basically just an excuse for the developers to incorporate their favorite wrestling moves.
Stuff, yeah.
Bars, you can do Tanahashi's finisher, the Sling Blade.
Yeah.
Really?
And what's there's that new the new Pokemon that's there's like a heel or whatever that. Well, yeah, but then there's also a Litten's final evolution or whatever. I don't remember the name of it. Incineroar, yeah, like the whole gimmick, and Pikachu Libre, like come on, like so.
The whole Pokken.
Yeah.
In the way back with Mario.
What's your thoughts on that? Because like so many times, like I actually went to my friends who are gamers and I'm like, hey, do you love wrestling and all stuff? They watch it, they're like, no.
I think that's culture kind of and sort of just society kind of coming down to wrestling, because it's sort of, in a way, it's we understand that it's kind of dumb, but we embrace that element of it. We like wrestling for what it is, and there's so many people being like, oh, it's just fake, like I can't tell you how many times I've told somebody that I watch wrestling, go, it's fake, right? And they look at me like I'm 5, like I don't understand, like no, you mean when Kane does the thing and the fire comes out of the pirate, like out of the
they don't actually go to hell?
Yeah, they don't actually, like, the ring, under the ring isn't like a leprechaun den, but also hell at the same time, like.
Yeah, also, just, like, I guess, because before I was into gaming, I was into, like, cartoons and stuff, and, like, I'm not saying that every wrestling fan is a gamer, but if you become a wrestling fan, it's a cartoon. It's a TV show.
It hits the same tropes and the same things you would like.
Yeah, it's more likely that you're probably going to be into like video games as well.
I think as far as like how many gamers are not wrestling fans, I think that has more to do with just the fact that gaming is a much more varied medium.
Yeah, it's a broad thing too.
Wrestling is a very specific kind of interest, because not only is it sport, it's choreographed sport. So
I always call it Air Bud.
Yeah, it's very focused, whereas gaming has all different kinds of genres and subgenres. So people who are into point-and-click adventure games might not find a whole lot about wrestling to get into, but wrestling fans can find a whole lot of video games that they can get into for a lot of reasons we mentioned before.
Yes.
I just wanted to share one of my favorite connections to video games and wrestling.
Yeah.
And how the wrestling match itself is so video gamey. You literally have 2 dudes or women and dudes with moves to build up enough meter to launch a super move that ends a fight.
Yes.
And to go as far as to do the super move taunt before setting it up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's very much. I mean, I think that's why wrestling games make such good games, because wrestling is, in a lot of ways, like a video game. You know, so like, you know, things like signatures and finishers. It's like, you know, that's a total fighting game thing, and the fact that they do that in wrestling is sort of coincidental in a way, but it just fits that same mold.
They also like the commentators even say, "Oh, he hit his finisher.
Yeah.
That's a signature move by
Yeah.
Roman Reigns." Or
Vintage
Randy Orton.
Vintage. This guy over here.
Yeah, so this is for all the panelists. So I noticed that in your favorite matches, I noticed no Roman Reigns at all. I wanted to know why.
No, I'll give Roman the credit where it's due, and he can put on a good match when, you know, when the time's right. And, you know, the matches he had with AJ and stuff like that, those were, I mean, he's Cena and all, he's had some really good matches. I don't know for me personally if he's hit that level of. You get a certain feeling when you watch a match you know is really good, and you know, like there's a level of like, okay, that was good, but then there was like, that was really good. So for me, like a match that happened this year, like when I watched Bate and Dunn at over Chicago this year, that's a match you see and you go, oh, that's why I like this. And you know, you could see a Roman match, and he's done some good ones, but I think he does a really good job exemplifying what WWE should be, and I think he does a really good job. But that isn't always so.
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact is again, just like poor booking, because like Roman Reigns, like I said, is a extremely talented worker and extremely talented performer. But the fact is, like, most of the outcomes involve him winning, which is something that most people don't want to see. So the ending, as with every piece of media, will always stick with you the most. And you know, it's like you know, no matter what you say, you know, if the guy you don't want to see wins, you're not going to remember it. You go ahead.
Okay. So I was watching Raw on Monday, and Roman faced one of my favorite wrestlers, Samoa Joe. By all means, I should have been super excited for this match, but I'm like, I know the result. I know that Roman's going to win, so I really can't bring myself. I can't bring myself to like really invest in this match if it's on free TV, and I pretty much know that the title's not going to change.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Although that makes it cool when it does happen.
Yeah, it makes it a lot more special.
I think Cena did a really good job when he was doing the U.S. Open Challenge.
Yeah,
you sort of felt like any given night that it could have happened, and then Del Rio won the title for some reason.
I think the whole Roman Reigns thing, as far as this subject goes, just goes to show how important character is in professional wrestling. Because not only do you need to be talented to be a successful professional wrestler, the fans need to connect with you, and if they don't have that connection, then they will forget.
Well, and there is and that's not to say he doesn't connect with the fans. I think he just doesn't connect with all the fans in the way that some other people do, or he doesn't connect with the vocal fans, the hardcore fans, and not all of us.
There's a disconnect.
He's starting to.
Yeah. He's definitely getting there, because it's that level of respect that sort of seen as at, where it's this idea that if you just continually put on good matches, then you'll be respected.
You've had your hand up for a while.
Just wanted to attest to the down-to-earthness of Xavier Woods.
Yes.
I got to play Tekken 7 with him at a tournament.
Awesome.
Right before SummerSlam. There was a
Nice.
big tournament in Brooklyn. And I got to play with him. He's a great guy to hang out with, and fucking squashed him.
Asshole.
He loves video games. Denver said he was good.
But he's free.
So, one of you had a wrestling game in your top 5 games of all time. But I'm curious, the other two of you, what's your favorite wrestling game?
Probably the last one that I was really super into was way back with Here Comes the Pain on PS2. Yeah.
It's kind of hard for me because I'm really into the 2K series. I think they do a really good job with the games, but it's very clear. Like when I bought 2K15, it was very clear like that game was like bare minimum. Like here's a fancy new engine you buy, and I buy the game every year, and I'm not proud of that. But for me, I think, so they made the engine switch from 2K14 to 2K15. 2K14 was on like the old, sort of, the graphics are a lot better in 15 or whatever. But 14 was sort of the last game that used the old engine. It had the 30 years of WrestleMania modes. They had all 30 WrestleMania arenas. The roster was huge with a few key omissions here and there. But so I don't know if I can go back and play 2K14 just because I'm so used to playing the newer ones. But at the time, I think I got the most mileage out of that game. It had like the mode with Undertaker where you you fight him like he's a mega boss in a game. Like it's like he's like Culex from our RPG. It's like he's got all these special things that you can't normally do. So it's the most like video gamey, I think, in a lot of ways.
That's one more thing I wanted to say. A lot of like big like a lot of the times the champion, if he's like a bad guy, that he's pretty much the final boss of that show. Like Triple H in his reign of terror in the early 2000s, he was the final boss of Raw. Like,
well, I think you get that too in the other divisions where I felt like in NXT, the Revival was very much the final boss
of the tag team division.
Whenever they had a good match and whenever they lost, it wasn't because they got dominated. It was because there was this one little moment. It reminds me of when you play an action game or rhythm game and you know when the beats are, and it's just a matter of doing it properly. Fighting the Revival is you just have to know what they're going to do, and if you know how to counter it properly, then you can. So that, to me, I got that sort of vibe of it. Felt like a final boss to me.
Yeah.
Do we have another question in the back? Anyone?
Yeah, the way back.
Sir.
So, the success of Lucha Underground and some other Lucha Libre programs, do you think we're going to actually get a Lucha Libre game instead of just
I would absolutely kill for a Lucha Underground video game.
There's rumors of a New Japan game, a new one that's supposed
to so what they're doing is they're licensing New Japan characters for the Fire Pro Wrestling game.
That's cool.
You guys should really check out Fire Pro.
I think Lucha Underground, I have personally seen that attracts people that don't like wrestling to wrestling. And the fact that it's on Netflix too, it really sort of hits that idea of like just wanting to binge watch TV shows. So I think it's possible that we could get there. But I think 2K sort of has a stranglehold on that sort of, on the whole wrestling game market. It would have to be something that,
Steam.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably do a limited release or something like that for like a game like New Japan, or you could do a Lucha Underground game. People would probably buy that.
I think the key to making a Lucha Libre game, especially if you're trying to make it for a global market, would be to not license actual Lucha Libre wrestlers, but make up your own characters, do an whole cartoony world, like you said, and just go from there.
Well, a lot of early wrestling games were that. It was a whole bunch of made-up guys that were
Saturday Night Slam Master, stuff like that.
We're supposed to emulate guys in federations.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah. Sir.
Sweet beard.
What is your favorite wrestling chant?
I don't think Gulak wants us to chant, though. Or did Gulak leave?
Okay, well...
Oh, sweet. Everybody chant. All right.
Okay. So, my friend in the front row and I went to WrestleMania weekend, and so we've done quite a few chants. My favorite chant that I've partaken, I'm very tired, was probably... did people watching the Raw after WrestleMania when Sheamus and Cesaro had their match against Enzo and Cass? Hey, Sheamus and Cesaro. Yeah.
I think Fight Forever gets a little bit overused nowadays.
Yeah.
But when I watched that original Zayn Nakamura match, that's a match you can show to people who don't watch wrestling. I think I showed it to Michaela, my girlfriend in the front row. She doesn't really care much for wrestling, but like that's one of those things that it fit that match so well, and I think when you see it, for me at least, when you use it in any other match, it sort of doesn't work in the same way. But I think for the specific instance that it happened, I think that's one of the best.
New Day rocks.
New Day rocks.
Okay, cool. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Tommy.
Nice. Oh, shit.
And Bully Ray got everybody chanting Ziggler's bitches.
Nice. Nice.
So, I just wanted to get that up there.
Back when the Authors of Pain, when we went to NXT TakeOver Orlando, this was when the Authors of Pain weren't over at the time, so we were all in favor of Revival and DIY, so whenever, the Authors of Pain were doing it, they were like, no one likes you. Just everything. It was great.
I remember being a kid and sort of still being new to wrestling. I remember the "you can't wrestle" chants really threw me off. That was kind of funny. Like, wait a minute, but that's what he's doing.
Are you saying that Roman isn't the best wrestler?
I remember being a kid and being a huge Khali fan. Just because he taps into the spectacle part of it, but then going back, you watch any Khali match from later in his career, the guy can't move. His legs are so.
We have
the most surreal experience you'll have is going to a WWE house show during a John Cena match, and you happen to be sitting next to an 8-year-old boy and his parents, and everybody's chanting, John Cena sucks, and the little boy is just looking at you and go like, what? John Cena doesn't suck? Why is people doing?
Even when Cena's not there, one of the biggest chances, let's go Cena. Cena sucks.
Yeah. He really has that connection with kids. It's great seeing like kids that get really excited and sort of it makes their day.
And it's slowly moving to Roman.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Who do you think is the next like big indie wrestler who will move over to the WWE by success?
It's gotta be Omega, doesn't it?
Yeah, everyone's saying Kenny Omega, but you know what? I feel like Kenny Omega is too in deep with the Japanese.
Yeah,
scene.
see, when,
You know what? I might say the Young Bucks. Well, before all the cease and desist stuff, before that, I would have said them. Right now, I couldn't tell you.
But Ricochet is pretty much guaranteed at this point. Yeah, is that official yet? Yeah.
We're out of time, so one more question.
Sure.
Yeah.
What did you think of the Kenny Omega?
Okay, I really wanted to watch that match, but I was really tired because I got here Wednesday night.
I watched Wrestle Kingdom live once.
So when I get home, I'm probably gonna put it on. But I've heard great things, and it's not good to set high expectations. But Chris Jericho is my favorite wrestler, and Kenny Omega is one of the best in the world. So
I watched AJ and Nakamura at Wrestle Kingdom a couple of years ago live as it happened, but my brother was in the room sleeping, so I watched it in the bathtub. I just thought that was funny.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Did you have anything?
Oh no, I haven't seen it yet. So.
Thank you so much for coming. It means a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was awesome. That was awesome.